You know that feeling? The alarm goes off, and instead of springing to life with purpose and energy, you find yourself staring at the ceiling, wondering why you should even bother getting up at all. Your body feels heavy, not from physical exhaustion, but from something deeper, something that has settled into your bones like a fog that refuses to lift. You think about the day ahead, the bills that need to be paid, the job that barely covers your expenses, the dreams you once had that now feel like distant memories belonging to someone else entirely. And in that moment, buried under your covers, you make a decision that you have probably made 1,000 times before without even realizing its significance. You decide to stay just a few more minutes, to delay facing a reality that offers you nothing worth rushing toward. What you do not understand, what almost nobody has ever explained to you, is that this simple act of hesitation, this reluctance to rise and meet your day, is not laziness, it is not depression in the clinical sense, and it is not a character flaw. It is a symptom of something far more profound, a spiritual and financial diagnosis that reveals exactly where you are headed if nothing changes. And I am going to tell you something that might disturb you, something that might make you uncomfortable, but something that has the power to completely transform your financial destiny if you have the courage to hear it and the wisdom to act upon it. I have studied the lives of the wealthiest and most successful people who have ever walked this earth, and I have discovered a pattern that separates those who build empires from those who spend their lives struggling paycheck to paycheck. This pattern has nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with education, nothing to do with luck or connections or being born into the right family. The pattern is this: wealthy people cannot wait to get out of bed in the morning. They wake up before their alarms, their minds already racing with possibilities, their spirits ignited by a vision so compelling that sleep itself becomes an interruption to their purpose. Meanwhile, those who struggle financially view the morning as an enemy, as something to be delayed and avoided, as the beginning of another day of meaningless labor that leads nowhere. Do you understand what I am telling you? Your relationship with your morning is a perfect mirror of your relationship with your financial future. The way you greet each new day is a prophecy of the prosperity or poverty that awaits you. And this is not some motivational platitude designed to make you feel guilty. This is a spiritual law as certain as gravity, as predictable as the season, as reliable as the rising and setting of the sun. The great industrialist John D. Rockefeller, who built the largest fortune in American history, and whose principles of wealth creation remain as relevant today as they were a century ago, understood this truth at a level that most people never comprehend. Rockefeller did not build Standard Oil because he wanted money. He built it because he had discovered something that made every morning feel like Christmas morning to a child. He had discovered his calling, his divine assignment, the specific work that God had designed him to accomplish on this earth. And when you find that thing, when you connect your daily labor to a purpose that transcends mere survival, something miraculous happens inside you. The alarm clock becomes unnecessary because your spirit wakes you before the sun rises. The reluctance to leave your bed disappears because your bed cannot contain the energy and excitement flowing through your veins. The dread of another day vanishes because you understand that this day, this specific collection of hours and minutes, is an unrepeatable gift from the Creator, an opportunity to advance your mission by one more step, to bring your vision one day closer to reality. But here you are, struggling to find a reason to put your feet on the floor. And I want you to know that I do not judge you for this. I understand the weight you carry. I understand what it feels like to work hard and see no results, to pray for breakthrough and hear only silence, to watch others prosper while you remain stuck in the same financial situation year after year. I understand the exhaustion that comes not from physical labor, but from hopelessness, from the quiet desperation of knowing that something is wrong, but not knowing how to fix it. And I want you to understand something essential. This feeling is not your permanent condition. This heaviness in your spirit is not God's design for your life. This reluctance to embrace each new day is a signal, a warning light on the dashboard of your soul, telling you that you have drifted away from the path you were created to walk. The good news, the incredibly good news, is that the path still exists. The purpose you were born to fulfill is still waiting for you. The financial abundance that flows naturally from aligned purpose is still available to you, but you must be willing to examine yourself honestly, to understand the root of your morning dread, and to make the changes necessary to transform your reluctant awakenings into purposeful rising. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this question. When was the last time you felt genuinely excited about your work? Not just satisfied, not just grateful to have a job, but truly excited, the way a child gets excited about going to Disneyland, the way an athlete gets excited before a championship game, the way a bride gets excited on her wedding day? When was the last time you went to sleep thinking about a project or a goal or a vision, and woke up eager to continue where you left off? If you cannot remember, if that feeling seems like a foreign concept, then you have just identified the exact source of your financial struggles. You are not struggling because the economy is bad. You are not struggling because you did not get enough education. You are not struggling because of your race, or your gender, or your background, or any of the 1,000 excuses that people use to explain their poverty. You are struggling because you have disconnected your daily labor from your divine purpose, and that disconnection has drained all the energy and creativity and enthusiasm that would otherwise fuel your journey to prosperity. I want to pause here for a moment because I sense that some of you watching this are feeling something stir inside you. Maybe it is recognition, that uncomfortable feeling when someone describes your private struggle out loud. Maybe it is hope, a tiny spark suggesting that change might actually be possible. Maybe it is fear, the worry that examining this too closely might require changes you are not ready to make. Whatever you are feeling right now, I want to hear about it. I want to know your story. So let me ask you directly, what has kept you in bed when you knew you should have been rising? What is the weight on your chest when that alarm goes off? I invite you to share in the comments below. Write this: the reason I struggle to get out of bed is, and complete that sentence honestly. I am asking this not out of curiosity but because I believe that the act of naming your struggle is the first step to overcoming it. When you write it down, when you share it with this community, you break the power of secrecy and shame that keeps so many people trapped in financial mediocrity. Your comment might also be the exact words someone else needs to read today. The validation that they are not alone, the permission they need to begin their own transformation. So please, take a moment right now, pause this video if you need to, and share your honest answer in the comments. The reason I struggle to get out of bed is, complete that sentence, and let us begin this journey together. Now let me show you what the Bible reveals about this connection between purposeful rising and financial prosperity, because this is not merely practical wisdom, it is spiritual law encoded into the very fabric of creation. In the book of Proverbs, we read that the hand of the diligent makes rich, while the lazy hand brings poverty. But most people misunderstand this verse completely. They think it is simply telling them to work harder, to put in more hours, to grind themselves into exhaustion in pursuit of wealth. But the Hebrew word translated as diligent means so much more than mere effort. It carries the connotation of sharpness, decisiveness, purpose. A diligent person is not someone who works mindlessly hard, but someone who knows exactly what they are doing and why they are doing it. They are sharp like a blade that has been honed for a specific purpose, decisive like an archer who has identified their target, purposeful like a ship that has set its course toward a definite destination. The opposite of diligence in this context is not relaxation or rest. The opposite is aimlessness, the condition of working hard without any clear sense of why, the exhausting treadmill of labor that leads nowhere. Consider the creation account itself, the way God modeled work before sin ever entered the world. When God created the heavens and the earth, He rose each morning, if we can speak of God in such human terms, with a clear vision of what He would accomplish that day. Let there be light, let there be a firmament, let there be dry land and vegetation, and creatures of every kind. Each day had its purpose, each morning brought its assignment, and at the end of each day God looked at His work and pronounced it good. This is the original pattern for human labor, the divine template that we were designed to follow. We were created to wake each morning with a clear sense of what we are building, to spend our days engaged in meaningful creation, and to end each evening with the satisfaction of knowing that we have moved our vision forward. When we live this way, work does not feel like a burden. Monday does not feel like a punishment. The alarm clock does not feel like a jailer dragging us back to our cell. Instead, we experience what the Bible calls the blessing of the Lord, which makes rich and adds no sorrow with it. The Hebrew word for sorrow in that verse can also be translated as painful toil, anxious care, heavy labor. In other words, True biblical prosperity comes without the exhaustion and dread that characterizes most people's experience of work. It comes with energy, with enthusiasm, with the eager anticipation that makes you want to jump out of bed each morning. Now some of you might be thinking, that sounds nice in theory, but I have bills to pay, responsibilities to meet, mouths to feed. I cannot just quit my job and follow my passion. I understand this concern, and I want to address it directly because this is where so many Christians get confused about prosperity and purpose. The answer is not to abandon your current responsibilities in some irresponsible leap of faith. The answer is to begin the process of aligning your work with your purpose while you continue to meet your obligation. This is exactly what Joseph did in Egypt. He did not start as Pharaoh's right-hand man. He started as a slave, then as a prisoner, then as an interpreter of dreams. But at every stage, he brought excellence and purpose to his work. He did not wake up dreading his days in Potiphar's house. He woke up determined to be the best servant that house had ever seen. He did not resent his time in prison. He used it to develop his gifts and build relationships that would later prove essential to his rise. And because he maintained this purposeful orientation, even in difficult circumstances, promotion eventually found him. The same principle applies to you. You do not have to wait until your circumstances are perfect to bring purpose and energy to your mornings. You can start right now, wherever you are, with whatever job you currently have. The key is to understand that purpose is not primarily about what you do, but about why you do it. Two people can have the identical job, performing the exact same tasks, and one can be fulfilled while the other is miserable. The difference lies in their internal orientation, in their understanding of how their work connects to something larger than themselves. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine two janitors working at a hospital. One views himself simply as someone who mops floors and empties trash cans. His alarm goes off each morning and he groans, dreading another day of menial labor that nobody notices or appreciates. He does the minimum required to avoid getting fired, watches the clock constantly, and lives for the moment when his shift finally ends. The other janitor understands his work differently. He sees himself as a critical member of the healthcare team, someone whose diligence in maintaining cleanliness directly impacts patient recovery and even survival. When he mops those floors, he is fighting infection. When he empties those trash cans, he is protecting vulnerable patients from contamination. When he sanitizes those surfaces, he is partnering with doctors and nurses in the sacred work of healing. This janitor wakes up with energy because he understands that his work matters. He performs his tasks with excellence because he is not merely cleaning, he is serving. And I can promise you that this second janitor, the one who brings purpose to his position, will not remain a janitor for long. His attitude will be noticed. His excellence will be recognized. Opportunities will open for him that remain forever closed to his purposeless colleague. This principle applies regardless of your current occupation. And I cannot stress this enough because I know many of you are thinking that your particular job is different, that your specific circumstances make purposeful engagement impossible. You are wrong, and I say that with complete confidence, because I have seen transformation happen in every imaginable context. I have witnessed prison inmates find purpose in their labor and watched their entire demeanor change. I have seen homeless individuals discover meaning in small tasks and begin their climb back to stability. I have observed people in what most would consider the most degrading, difficult, lowest-paying jobs imaginable transform their experience through the power of purposeful orientation. The job does not determine your capacity for purpose. Your mindset determines it. And when your mindset shifts, your experience of even the most challenging work shifts with it. Let me tell you about a woman I knew who worked in a factory assembling components for electronics. Hour after hour, day after day, she performed the same repetitive motions, attaching the same pieces in the same sequence. Most of her co-workers hated every moment. They complained constantly, watched the clock obsessively, and lived only for their breaks and the end of their shifts. But this woman discovered something that transformed her experience completely. She learned that the components she was assembling went into medical devices, specifically devices that helped diabetic patients monitor their blood sugar levels. Once she understood this, everything changed. She was no longer just attaching components. She was participating in healthcare. Every device that passed through her hands would eventually help someone manage a serious chronic condition. Every day she showed up. She was contributing to the well-being of people she would never meet, but whose lives were improved by her diligence. Did the repetitive nature of her work change? No. Did the pay increase? No. Did the physical demands decrease? No. But her experience of the work transformed completely. She became the most enthusiastic employee in her section. Her quality scores improved dramatically. Her attendance became perfect. And eventually, her supervisors noticed. She was promoted to team lead, then to quality supervisor, then to shift manager. Her income nearly tripled over 5 years, not because she changed jobs, but because she changed her relationship to her job. This is the power of purposeful orientation. You might be a cashier at a grocery store. You can view yourself as someone who scans barcodes and makes change, or you can view yourself as someone who blesses every family that comes through your line, who brings a moment of human connection to people who might otherwise feel invisible, who represents the hands and heart of Christ to every customer you serve. You might be a truck driver. You can view yourself as someone who sits alone for hours staring at endless highway, or you can view yourself as someone who keeps the economy flowing, who delivers the goods that families depend on, who connects producers with consumers across vast distances. You might be unemployed. You can view yourself as someone who has failed to find work, or you can view yourself as someone in a season of preparation, someone with the rare opportunity to invest time in developing new skills, building new relationships, and clarifying your vision for the next chapter of your life. In every case, the external circumstances remain the same. What changes is your internal orientation, and that internal shift will transform your external reality more powerfully than any change in your job title or income could ever accomplish. But let me push deeper still, because aligning your current work with purpose is only the beginning. The ultimate goal, the place where you will experience the full energy and enthusiasm that characterized Rockefeller and every great builder of wealth, is to identify and pursue your specific calling. Not just any purpose, but the particular assignment that God designed you to fulfill. The unique contribution that only you can make. The work that you would do even if no one paid you, because it brings such profound satisfaction and joy. When you find this, when you connect your daily labor to your divine assignment, you will never again struggle to get out of bed. You will never again watch the clock waiting for the workday to end. You will never again feel that heavy reluctance when your alarm sounds. Instead, you will experience what can only be described as sacred momentum, that unstoppable energy that comes when a person knows they are exactly where they are supposed to be, doing exactly what they are supposed to do. So how do you find this calling? How do you identify the specific work that will transform your mornings from dreaded obligations to anticipated opportunities? I want to give you 3 keys that have proven effective for countless people throughout history, principles that Rockefeller himself applied and that remain just as powerful today. The first key is to identify where your passion meets the world's pain. Passion alone is not enough. Many people are passionate about things that no one will pay for, hobbies and interests that bring personal enjoyment, but create no value for others. And yet meeting the world's pain without passion leads to the same exhausted reluctance you currently experience. The sweet spot, the place where financial prosperity flows naturally, is where these 2 elements intersect. What breaks your heart when you see it in the world? What injustice makes you angry? What need makes you want to act? These questions point toward the pain that you are uniquely positioned to address. At the same time, what comes naturally to you? What could you talk about for hours without getting bored? What do people come to you for advice about? These questions point toward your passions and gifts. The work that will make you leap out of bed each morning lives at the intersection of these 2 sets of questions, where your passion empowers you to address a pain that the world desperately wants solved. The second key is to start small, but start now. One of the greatest obstacles to finding your calling is the belief that it must be figured out completely before you can begin. People wait for perfect clarity that never comes. They postpone action until they have every detail mapped out. Meanwhile, years pass, and they remain stuck in the same reluctant mornings, the same unfulfilling jobs, the same financial struggles. The truth is that purpose is revealed through action, not contemplation. You cannot think your way to clarity about your calling. You must act your way there. Start with whatever small step is available to you right now. If you think your calling might involve teaching, find one person to teach something to, even informally. If you think it might involve writing, start a blog or a journal, even if no one reads it initially. If you think it might involve serving a particular population, volunteer somewhere that allows you to test that hypothesis. Each small action will provide feedback that helps you refine your understanding of your calling. The path reveals itself only to those who begin walking. The third key is to connect your calling to kingdom purposes. This is what separates Christian prosperity from mere worldly success. Your calling is not ultimately about you. It is not primarily about your comfort, your recognition, or even your financial abundance. It is about advancing the kingdom of God on this earth, about partnering with the Creator in His ongoing work of redemption and restoration. When you understand your calling in these terms, it takes on a weight and significance that mere personal ambition can never provide. You are not just building a business. You are funding kingdom work. You are not just pursuing a career. You are developing influence that can be leveraged for eternal purposes. You are not just trying to escape financial struggle. You are positioning yourself to bless others with the abundance that flows through your life. This eternal perspective provides a motivation that transcends the ups and downs of daily circumstances. On the hard days, and there will be hard days even when you are walking in your calling, this higher purpose sustains you. When discouragement threatens to overwhelm you, you remember that your work matters beyond what you can see. When the temptation to stay in bed grows strong, you remember that people are depending on you, both those you already know and those you have not yet met, who will one day benefit from your faithfulness to your calling. Let me tell you about a man I once encountered who embodied these principles perfectly. He had spent 20 years in a corporate job that paid well, but drained his soul. Every morning was a battle. Every evening he collapsed in exhaustion. Every weekend he dreaded the approaching Monday. He was financially stable but spiritually bankrupt, and his bank account could not compensate for the emptiness he felt inside. Then one day, he began asking the questions I have shared with you today. Where does my passion meet the world's pain? What small step can I take immediately? How can my work serve kingdom purposes? The answers led him in an unexpected direction. He realized that his true passion was helping young men without fathers learn the principles of manhood and responsibility. He had grown up without a father himself and knew the confusion and pain that fatherlessness creates. He started small, mentoring just 2 young men from his church on weekends. But something remarkable happened. For the first time in years, he woke up on Saturday mornings with energy and excitement. He found himself thinking about his mentees during the week, planning lessons and activities, praying for their success. Slowly, the mentoring expanded. More young men joined. Other men wanted to learn his approach so they could mentor as well. Within 5 years, he had left his corporate job and was running a nonprofit organization dedicated to mentoring fatherless young men. His income had actually decreased compared to his corporate salary, but his wealth, properly understood, had increased exponentially. He was rich in purpose, rich in impact, rich in the satisfaction that comes from aligned living. And here is the amazing thing. He no longer needed an alarm clock at all. His spirit woke him before dawn, eager to begin each new day. This is the promise I want to hold before you today. This transformation is available to you. The reluctance you feel each morning is not your permanent condition. It is a symptom of misalignment, and misalignment can be corrected. But correction requires action. It requires you to examine honestly where your life has drifted from purpose. It requires you to take the small steps necessary to begin the journey back. It requires you to connect your work, whatever work you currently do, to something larger than yourself. And as you walk this path, I believe you will discover something wonderful. The financial abundance you have been seeking will begin to flow toward you, not as the primary goal, but as a natural byproduct of purposeful, kingdom-aligned living. Prosperity is not something you chase. It is something that chases you when you align yourself with divine purpose. Now I want to speak directly to those of you who have been touched by what I have shared. Perhaps you recognize yourself in my description of reluctant mornings. Perhaps you feel the stirring of hope that change might be possible. Perhaps you sense that this is not a coincidental video in your feed, but a divine appointment, a message that God knew you needed to hear today. If any of this resonates with you, I have an invitation to extend. This channel is dedicated to helping people just like you transform their relationship with money through the lens of Christian faith. Every week, I share principles that have been proven across centuries, wisdom from the greatest wealth builders in history applied through a biblical framework. If you found value in today's message, I invite you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Not because I need your subscription, but because you need the consistent input that this channel provides. Transformation does not happen through a single video. It happens through continuous exposure to new thinking, through regular challenges to old beliefs, through the steady accumulation of wisdom applied over time. By subscribing, you are making a commitment to yourself, a declaration that you are serious about change, a practical step that ensures these messages will continue reaching you. And by joining this community, you are surrounding yourself with other believers who are on the same journey, people who understand your struggles because they share them, people who can encourage you when discouragement threatens to derail your progress. So please, if this message has spoken to you, take 10 seconds right now to subscribe and click that notification bell. It is a small action that can have profound consequences for your financial and spiritual future. Let us return to the heart of our teaching, because I want to ensure you understand the full depth of what I am communicating. The reluctance to get out of bed is not merely a personal annoyance or a minor obstacle to productivity. It is a prophetic indicator of your financial trajectory. It reveals whether you are on a path toward abundance or a path toward continued struggle. Think about this carefully. When you wake with reluctance, you are starting each day with depleted energy. You are beginning your work already exhausted, already discouraged, already defeated. How can you possibly compete with someone who wakes energized, excited, and eager? How can you create value at the level necessary for prosperity when you cannot even muster enthusiasm for getting dressed and showing up? The playing field is not level between someone who loves their work and someone who tolerates. The person who loves their work will always outperform, always out-create, always out-persist the person who is merely going through the motion. This is why purpose is not a luxury for the privileged few. It is a necessity for anyone who wants to escape financial mediocrity. Consider what happens physiologically when you wake with purpose versus when you wake with dread. When you anticipate something exciting, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with motivation and reward. This dopamine surge energizes your entire system, sharpens your thinking, enhances your creativity, and increases your persistence in the face of obstacles. In contrast, when you dread what lies ahead, your brain releases cortisol and other stress hormones. These hormones deplete your energy, cloud your thinking, diminish your creativity, and reduce your tolerance for the difficulties that any worthwhile endeavor inevitably involves. In other words, your morning emotional state is not just psychological, it is biochemical. It physically determines the level of mental and creative resources you will have available throughout the day. The person who wakes with purpose literally has more brain power than the person who wakes with dread. This difference compounds over time. Day after day, year after year, the purposeful person builds an insurmountable advantage over the reluctant one. Is it any wonder that they end up with vastly different financial outcomes? But there is another dimension to this that most people never consider. Your morning emotional state affects not only your performance, but also the opportunities that come to you. This is a spiritual principle that secular success teachings either miss or misunderstand. When you carry purpose and enthusiasm, you attract different circumstances than when you carry reluctance and dread. People want to work with you, promote you, partner with you, invest in you. Opportunities seem to appear out of nowhere. Doors open that you did not even know existed. This is not magic or superstition. It is the natural consequence of walking in alignment with your divine design. God created you for a purpose. When you pursue that purpose, you tap into a flow of favor and provision that is unavailable to those who ignore their calling. The Bible describes this as walking in prepared good works, the specific assignments that God established for you before the foundation of the world. When you find these assignments and pursue them with wholehearted commitment, you step into a realm of supernatural assistance that transforms what would otherwise be impossible into inevitable. Rockefeller understood this principle even if he did not articulate it in religious language. He described his work as a calling, not merely a career. He believed that God had given him the ability to make money, and that he was accountable for how he used that ability. This conviction infused his work with meaning and energy that mere profit-seeking could never provide. When critics attacked him, when competition threatened, when circumstances seemed dire, he pressed forward with a confidence that baffled his opponents. Where did this confidence come from? It came from purpose. It came from the conviction that he was doing what he was designed to do. It came from the energy reserves that only aligned living can provide. And because he operated from this place of purpose, rather than mere ambition, he achieved what no one before him had achieved, and what few since have replicated. His wealth was not the result of superior intelligence or better circumstances. It was the result of purposeful living sustained over decades. I want to address something that might be troubling some viewers. Perhaps you are thinking that Rockefeller was not a perfect man, that his business practices were sometimes ruthless, that his wealth was built partly through methods that would not pass ethical scrutiny today. These concerns are legitimate. I am not holding up Rockefeller as a moral exemplar in every dimension of life. What I am pointing to is specific: his understanding of purpose and energy, his recognition that meaningful work produces capacities that meaningless labor never can, his conviction that human beings are designed to wake with enthusiasm for the work before them. These principles are true regardless of how imperfectly any individual might apply them. The same fire that drives a person to build monopolies can drive another to build orphanages. The same energy that fuels ruthless competition can fuel relentless compassion. The principles themselves are neutral tools. What matters is the hands that wield them and the hearts that direct them. My goal is to give you these tools so that you can wield them for good, for the blessing of your family, your community, and the kingdom of God. Let me share with you what the transformation from reluctant mornings to purposeful awakenings actually looks like in practical terms, because theory without application remains useless. The first change you will notice is in your thoughts when you first wake up. Instead of groaning about the day ahead, you will find yourself thinking about what you get to do, rather than what you have to do. The subtle shift from obligation to opportunity changes everything. Your first moments of consciousness will be colored by anticipation rather than dread. You might even find yourself waking before your alarm, your subconscious mind pulling you toward the day rather than pushing you away from it. The second change is in your energy levels throughout the day. Purpose generates energy. When you are connected to your why, you tap into reserves of strength that seem almost supernatural. You will be able to work longer without exhaustion, push through obstacles that previously would have stopped you, maintain focus and creativity when others are fading. This is not mere motivation. It is the natural consequence of aligned living, of doing what you were designed to do. The third change is in your results. When you work with energy and enthusiasm, rather than reluctance and exhaustion, the quality of your output improves dramatically. You will create things you are proud of. You will solve problems that previously seemed insurmountable. You will attract opportunities that remained invisible when you were operating in survival mode. And the fourth change, perhaps the most important, is in your relationship with money itself. When you operate from purpose, money becomes a tool rather than a master. You no longer chase it out of desperation, but attract it through value creation. You no longer obsess over it out of scarcity, but steward it with abundance mentality. Your entire emotional relationship with finances transforms from anxiety to peace, from fear to faith. But I must be honest with you about something. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is a process that unfolds over months and years as you consistently apply these principles. There will be mornings, even after you begin walking in greater purpose, when the old reluctance returns. There will be seasons when discouragement seems to overwhelm your sense of calling. There will be moments when you doubt whether any of this is real, or whether you were foolish to hope for change. This is normal. This is part of the journey. The difference between those who ultimately transform and those who fall back into old patterns is not the absence of difficulty but the response to difficulty. When the reluctant morning comes, will you use it as evidence that change is impossible? Or will you recognize it as a temporary setback in a longer journey and recommit to your purpose? When discouragement threatens, will you surrender to it? Or will you reach for the resources that can help you push through? Your answers to these questions will determine your financial destiny more than any external circumstance ever could. The Bible provides us with countless examples of this principle in action, and I want to explore some of these with you because they illuminate truths that modern success literature often misses. Consider the story of Nehemiah. Here was a man who had a comfortable position, serving as cupbearer to the king of Persia. By worldly standards, he had made it. He was close to power, financially secure, protected from the hardships that afflicted most of his fellow Jews. He could have coasted through his remaining years, enjoying his status and avoiding risk. But something happened that disrupted his comfortable existence. He received news that Jerusalem lay in ruin, its walls destroyed, its gates burned, its people in disgrace. And this news broke something inside him. He wept, he mourned, he fasted and prayed for days. Why? Because the pain he discovered connected with something deep in his identity and calling. He was not just any man hearing about any city. He was a Jew hearing about the holy city of his people. And in that moment of agonized prayer, purpose crystallized within him. He would rebuild those walls. He would restore the dignity of his people. He would turn his comfortable existence into one of dangerous but meaningful action. Notice what happened to Nehemiah once purpose took hold. He did not hit the snooze button on his divine assignment. He immediately began planning, strategizing, preparing. When the opportunity came to speak to the king, he was ready. He had calculated the materials needed, the timeline required, the permissions necessary. His purposeful energy impressed the king so much that not only was his request granted, but he was given resources far beyond what he had asked for. Royal letters, military escort, access to the king's forest for timber. Abundance flowed toward his purpose in ways he could not have manufactured, through his own effort alone. And when he arrived in Jerusalem, facing opposition that would have discouraged anyone operating merely from duty or obligation, his purpose sustained him. The famous scene where the workers built with a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other, that level of dedication only comes from people who know why they are building. That persistence through threat and mockery and exhaustion only emerges from purpose. And in the end, the walls were rebuilt in an astonishing 52 days, a feat so remarkable that even the enemies of Israel had to acknowledge the hand of God in it. What does this have to do with your reluctant mourning? Everything. Nehemiah teaches us that purpose transforms capacity. When you know your why, you find energy you did not know you possessed. When you are connected to something larger than your own comfort, you discover reserves of strength that merely going through the motions never reveals. The walls of your financial freedom can be rebuilt. The ruins of your broken dreams can be restored. But it will require the same kind of purposeful energy that Nehemiah brought to his assignment. It will require you to stop hitting snooze on the calling that stirs within you. Consider also the Apostle Paul, perhaps the most productive human being in the history of Christianity. This was a man who endured shipwrecks, beatings, imprisonment, hunger, cold, constant danger from enemies both inside and outside the church. By any reasonable assessment, he had every reason to stay in bed, to give up, to find a quiet corner somewhere and wait for death. But instead, he pressed on with relentless energy. He planted churches across the Roman Empire. He wrote letters that shaped Christian theology for 2 millennia. He trained leaders, settled disputes, collected offerings for the poor, and maintained his tent-making business on the side. Where did this superhuman energy come from? He tells us himself, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." But notice the context. He is not claiming magical ability to accomplish whatever he wants. He is explaining how he handles both plenty and want, both abundance and need. His secret is contentment rooted in purpose. He knows why he exists. He knows what he is called to do, and that knowledge unleashes capacity that circumstances can never diminish. Paul also gives us the theological framework for understanding purposeful work. In Colossians, he writes, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." This verse transforms the entire concept of labor. You are not primarily working for your employer, your customers, or even yourself. You are working for the Lord. Every task, no matter how mundane, becomes an act of worship when performed with this orientation. Every morning becomes an opportunity to serve the King of Kings through the specific assignment of that day. How can you dread getting out of bed when the God of the universe has prepared works for you to accomplish? How can you hit snooze on divine appointment? How can you approach your labor with anything less than enthusiasm when you understand that Christ Himself is your ultimate employer? Let me push deeper still for building momentum on this journey. First, begin each day with intentional purpose setting. Before you check your phone, before you read emails, before you engage with any external input, take 5 minutes to remind yourself why you are alive, what you are building, who is depending on you to show up fully today. This practice anchors your morning in purpose rather than allowing circumstance to dictate your emotional state. Second, create what I call a purpose portfolio, a collection of items that remind you of your why. This might include photographs of people you serve or will serve, written descriptions of the future you are building, scripture verses that speak to your calling, letters or testimonials from people you have already impacted. Review this portfolio whenever your motivation wavers. The visual and tangible reminder of your purpose will reignite the fire that circumstances may have temporarily dimmed. Third, surround yourself with purposeful people. Your associations dramatically influence your internal state. If you spend most of your time with people who dread their work, complain about their circumstances, and see no hope for change, their energy will infect you regardless of your intentions. Seek out those who have found their calling, who wake with enthusiasm, who are building something meaningful with their lives. Their presence will strengthen your own resolve and provide models for what purposeful living actually looks like. Fourth, and this is crucial, commit to continuous learning about your area of calling. One of the reasons people lose enthusiasm for their work is that they stop growing. They master the basics and then coast on autopilot, doing the same things the same way year after year. This stagnation breeds boredom, and boredom destroys purpose. In contrast, when you are constantly learning, constantly pushing the boundaries of your understanding and capability, work remains fresh and engaging. Every book you read, every course you take, every mentor you consult adds new dimensions to your calling and new energy to your pursuit of it. Rockefeller was a voracious learner throughout his life. Even when he was the richest man in the world, he continued studying, continued seeking new knowledge, continued refining his understanding of business and life. This commitment to growth kept his mind sharp and his enthusiasm high well into his later years. Fifth, build Sabbath rest into your rhythm. This might seem contradictory in a teaching about purposeful energy, but it is actually essential. God designed human beings to operate in cycles of work and rest. When you ignore the need for rest, trying to maintain maximum intensity constantly, you deplete the very resources that make purposeful work possible. The command to keep the Sabbath was not arbitrary. It was based on deep wisdom about human nature and capacity. Regular rest renews your physical energy, restores your emotional reserves, and reconnects you with the spiritual source of your calling. Many people who once woke with enthusiasm burn out precisely because they refused to rest. They pushed too hard for too long and exhausted their capacity for meaningful work. Do not make this mistake. Build rest into your schedule not as a luxury, but as a necessity for sustained purposeful living. Now I want to address the spiritual dimensions of this transformation more directly, because everything I have said so far would be incomplete without acknowledging the role of prayer and divine guidance in discovering and pursuing your calling. Human wisdom can take you only so far. Strategic thinking and practical action are necessary but not sufficient. You also need revelation, the direct communication from God that illuminates what you cannot see through natural means alone. When you pray about your calling, when you seek God's guidance about your work and your finances, you invite supernatural assistance into your journey, and God is not reluctant to provide this assistance. The Bible tells us that if any person lacks wisdom, they should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. Your Heavenly Father wants to reveal your purpose even more than you want to discover it. He designed you for specific good works, and He delights in helping you find and fulfill them. But this guidance often requires patience and persistence. It may not come immediately or in the form you expect. You may need to press in through extended seasons of seeking before clarity emerges. Do not let delay discourage you. Use the waiting time to prepare yourself for what God will reveal. When the revelation comes, you will be ready to act on it. I also want to acknowledge that some viewers may be carrying wounds that make this transformation particularly challenging. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where work was always a burden, where you never saw adults who loved what they did for a living. Perhaps you have experienced failure so devastating that hope itself seems dangerous, that you are afraid to become enthusiastic because enthusiasm has led to disappointment before. Perhaps depression or anxiety complicates your ability to simply will yourself to feel differently about your mornings. These are real challenges, and I do not want to minimize them. If you are struggling in these ways, please seek appropriate help. Talk to a pastor, a counselor, a doctor. The principles I am sharing are true and powerful, but they are not magic formulas that bypass the need for healing. Sometimes the journey to purposeful mornings requires first addressing the wounds that have accumulated over a lifetime of painful experience. There is no shame in needing help. There is only wisdom in pursuing whatever assistance will enable you to live the abundant life that Christ promised. I want to share with you what I call the 3 thieves of purposeful morning, because understanding these enemies will help you defeat them. The first thief is the spirit of comparison. You wake in the morning and before you even rise, your mind begins comparing your situation to others. Your neighbor has a nicer car. Your cousin has a bigger house. Your former classmate just posted about another exotic vacation while you struggle to pay rent. This comparison steals your energy before the day even begins. It robs you of gratitude for what you have and blinds you to the opportunities before you. The antidote to comparison is what I call purposeful gratitude, a deliberate practice of thanking God for your specific circumstances, not despite their limitations, but including their limitations. When you understand that God has placed you exactly where you need to be for the current phase of your development, comparison loses its power. You are not behind. You are not missing out. You are precisely on schedule for your unique journey. The second thief is the tyranny of the urgent. Your morning is stolen not by dread exactly, but by the immediate demands that hijack your attention before you can connect with purpose. The emails that scream for response, the messages that flash on your phone, the children who need immediate attention, the crises that seem to require your instant involvement. None of these are bad in themselves, but when they consistently crowd out time for purposeful reflection and intentional living, they become enemies of your financial transformation. The antidote is what I call the sacred first hour, a non-negotiable period at the beginning of each day when you refuse to engage with external demands and instead invest in your own clarity and energy. During this hour you pray, you reflect on your purpose, you review your goals, you prepare your mind and heart for the day ahead. This investment pays dividends throughout the remaining hours. You become more effective, more focused, more resilient. The urgent matters still get addressed, but from a position of strength rather than reactivity. The third thief is the lie of tomorrow. You wake with a vague intention to begin pursuing your purpose. Tomorrow. Today is already determined. Today has its obligations. Today is not the right time. But tomorrow you will begin the reading, start the planning, make the call, take the step. This lie is especially dangerous because it feels so reasonable. What harm could come from one more day of delay? The harm is compound stagnation. Every day you postpone purposeful action, you move further from the version of yourself that wakes with enthusiasm. The neural pathways of reluctance grow stronger. The muscle of initiative grows weaker. The gap between your current reality and your potential expands. Tomorrow never comes because when it arrives, it has become today, and the same lie presents itself again. The antidote is radical present action. Not perfection, just action. One step today, however small, that moves you toward your calling. Do not let the sun set on your intentions. Transform them into actions before this day ends. Let me speak now about a subject that many Christian teachers avoid, but that is essential to your financial transformation: the relationship between purpose and prosperity. Some in the church have taught that pursuing wealth is inherently unspiritual, that the truly godly person should be content with poverty, that financial ambition represents a compromise with worldly values. This teaching has done immeasurable damage to sincere believers who have subsequently felt guilty for wanting to provide better for their family or build resources that could be deployed for kingdom purposes. Let me be clear, this teaching is not biblical. It is a distortion that Satan has used to keep God's people impoverished and the church dependent on the world rather than positioned to impact it. The Bible does not condemn wealth, it condemns the love of money, which is entirely different. Abraham was wealthy. Job was wealthy. Solomon was wealthy. The virtuous woman of Proverbs 31 was a successful businesswoman who expanded her real estate holdings and provided abundantly for her household. God Himself promises material blessing to those who walk in obedience, not as the primary goal, but as one dimension of comprehensive flourishing. The key is understanding that biblical prosperity always flows through purpose, rather than being pursued for its own sake. When you seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, all these things are added to you. The adding happens, but it follows the seeking. When you pursue your divine calling with wholehearted commitment, financial provision follows. It may not look exactly like you expected. It may come through channels you never anticipated, but it comes because purpose and provision are spiritually connected in ways that mere ambition and accumulation are not. Rockefeller understood this principle even if he did not express it in theological terms. His wealth followed his purpose. His fortune grew as a consequence of his commitment to building something of lasting value. The money was a byproduct, not the primary goal. And this orientation made all the difference in how he experienced both the building and the blessing. But for most of you watching, the obstacle is not trauma or mental health challenges, but simply the weight of accumulated hopelessness and the inertia of long-established patterns. You have woken with reluctance for so long that it feels normal, even inevitable. You have disconnected from purpose for so many years that you can barely imagine what connected living would feel like. If this describes you, I want to offer tremendous encouragement. Patterns can be broken. Trajectories can be changed. The brain itself is plastic, capable of rewiring in response to new inputs and behaviors. The spiritual reality is even more hopeful. You serve a God who specializes in making all things new, who delights in transformation, who takes the dead and dry and breathes fresh life into them. Your current state is not your permanent condition unless you choose to accept it as such. The very fact that you have watched this far, that something in this message has resonated with something in your spirit, suggests that change is stirring within you. Do not quench this stirring. Feed it. Act on it. Take the first small step today, this very day, toward the purposeful mornings that await you. Let me tell you about the financial implications of this transformation in more concrete terms. When you discover your calling and pursue it with energy and enthusiasm, several things happen that directly impact your wealth. First, you become dramatically more productive. Study after study has shown that people who love their work accomplish vastly more than those who merely tolerate it. This increased productivity means you create more value, and created value is the fundamental basis of all legitimate wealth. You cannot get rich by doing ordinary work at an ordinary pace with ordinary enthusiasm. Extraordinary financial results require extraordinary effort, and extraordinary effort is only sustainable when it flows from deep purpose. Second, you become more innovative. When you genuinely care about your work, you think about it constantly, looking for better approaches, more efficient methods, creative solutions to persistent problems. This ongoing mental engagement produces insights that never occur to those who are just putting in time until they can go home. Innovation creates competitive advantage, and competitive advantage translates into financial reward. Third, you attract collaborators and investors. People with resources are always looking for where to deploy them for maximum impact. They are drawn to energy and vision like moths to flame. When you operate from purpose, when your enthusiasm is evident in everything you do, you become a magnet for the partnerships and capital that accelerate wealth building. The reluctant worker must beg for opportunity. The purposeful worker must choose among abundant options. Fourth, you persist through setbacks. Every significant wealth-building journey involves obstacles, failures, and periods of apparent regression. Those without deep purpose abandon ship at the first sign of trouble. They lack the internal resources to weather the storms that inevitably come. But those connected to their calling persist because they have something worth persisting for. Their purpose sustains them when circumstances would otherwise discourage them. And persistence, over time, produces outcomes that talent alone never achieves. I want to close by painting a picture of what your life could look like if you apply what I have shared today. Imagine waking tomorrow morning, not with the familiar weight of dread, but with a flutter of anticipation for what the day holds. Imagine springing out of bed, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you are excited to continue the work that gives your life meaning. Imagine moving through your day with energy that seems to come from an inexhaustible source, tackling challenges that previously would have overwhelmed you, creating work that you are genuinely proud of. Imagine ending your day not in exhausted collapse, but in satisfied reflection, knowing that you moved your vision forward, that you served your purpose, that you honored the calling on your life. Imagine checking your bank account and seeing growth that reflects the value you are creating in the world, financial reward that flows naturally from aligned effort. Imagine going to sleep with peace in your heart, looking forward to tomorrow rather than dreading it, confident that you are on the right path and making progress along it. This is not fantasy. This is the life that awaits you when you align your work with your purpose and your purpose with the kingdom of God. But this picture will remain merely imagination unless you act. Everything I have shared is useless unless it moves from concept to implementation. So let me leave you with a challenge, an assignment that I invite you to complete before you watch anything else, before you return to the scrolling and distraction that characterizes most people's digital lives. Here is the assignment. Write down the answer to this question. What work would I do if money were no object and I could not fail? Do not filter your answer based on practicality. Do not limit yourself based on current circumstances. Write down the truest, most honest answer that emerges from your heart. Then, beneath that answer, write one small action you could take in the next 7 days to move toward that work. Not a giant leap, just one small step. A conversation you could have. A resource you could read. A skill you could begin developing. One action that would begin the process of alignment. And then, this is the crucial part. Do it. Take that action within the next 7 days. Do not let another week pass in which you merely consume inspiration without producing transformation. Action is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Cross that bridge. To everyone who has journeyed with me through this teaching, I am grateful. The principles I have shared are not theory for me. They are the bedrock of my own financial transformation and the foundation I have watched change countless lives across the years. I believe in them because I have seen them work, again and again, in every kind of person and every kind of circumstance, and I believe they can work for you if you will commit to applying them. If this message has impacted you, if you have felt conviction or hope or determination while watching, I ask you to share this video with someone else who needs it. The person struggling with the same reluctant mornings, the friend stuck in the same financial ruts, the family member who has lost connection with purpose. Your share might be the catalyst for their transformation. And of course, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so now. I do not say that to boost my numbers. I say it because I know what I have to offer can change your life if you will give it the opportunity. Each video builds on the ones before, creating a comprehensive framework for financial transformation, grounded in Christian faith. Miss one, and you miss a piece of the puzzle. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and make this channel a regular part of your growth journey. May you discover your calling. May you wake with enthusiasm for the work before you. May your financial destiny shift from struggle to abundance as you align your labor with your purpose and your purpose with the kingdom. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual law, and as you apply it, you will experience the truth of the ancient promise. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Those desires are not primarily material, but they include material provision as part of a larger package of blessing. Go now, rise with purpose, and watch what God does in and through your newly energized life.